Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catholic on Tampa Online. Today, we've got Craig Latimer, who is our Hillsborough County Supervisor of Elections. He's going to be talking about the upcoming elections. Craig, welcome. Tell us about yourself.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. I'm a native Tampan, born and raised here, went to local schools, graduated from the University of South Florida. Prior to being in the Supervisor of Elections office, I spent 35 years with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. I spent most of my time there in the homicide arena. I was a homicide detective, sergeant, lieutenant, and captain, and then transitioned to child protective investigations from the state to the county. I went to work as the chief of staff in 2009 at the Supervisor of Elections office for Phyllis Buzanski, who had been elected. And unfortunately, about 6 months on the job, Phyllis passed away, and Earl Leonard, former school superintendent, was picked by the governor to continue her term. Earl said he was going back to being retired and said I should be running for this office. And so I did. So I was elected in 2012. I was reelected in 2016 without opposition, and I was just reelected again without opposition.
Yeah, congratulations. That was just a month or so ago, right, that you found that
Yes.
out? And Earl Leonard just passed away, what, 6 months ago?
He did. Yes, he did, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, great guy. Okay, well, tell us, there are two upcoming elections. Can you tell us when they are, and maybe start with the first one and tell us how people can vote to start with?
Yeah, and great timing here because we do have the primary election comes up August 18th. And we'll talk about that one right now because the most important thing you need to know is that the last day to register to vote or to change your party affiliation is July 20th. So right around the corner here. So if you want to vote in this upcoming primary, now's the time. Go online. You can register to vote online.
Can you, before you keep on, can you just explain to people why the party affiliation is important besides the philosophical reasons? Can you just explain that, how the primaries work?
Sure. So Florida is a closed primary state. And what that means is you can only vote in the primary for the party that you're registered in. There's a lot of different open and closed type things, but Florida is purely a closed primary state. So if you're a registered Republican, you can only vote on the Republican side in the primary because what you're doing is nominating your people to go forward. Now, having said that, no party affiliation people also get to vote because we've got nonpartisan races of school board and judges, and some of those races will be decided at the primary. So it's really important. People kind of sometimes blow off primary elections as they're nothing really big. They are big. I can tell you that in Hillsborough County, our clerk's race is going to be what's called a universal primary because both of the candidates in that race are in the same party. And if that occurs, what happens then is it's open to all voters. So Republicans, no party affiliation, and Democrats will be able to vote in that contest. And that contest will be decided at the primary. So it is extremely important to get out and vote in these primaries. That way you've got a voice in who you're pushing forward too. That's probably the most important thing.
And there used to be, tell me if I'm wrong, there used to be like 400 and something political parties, right? There was a surfer party, and do you know how many there are?
There's a bunch. There's a lot of minor parties. The reason you don't ever see anything with them is because you have to have X amount of people in the party to see them on the ballot type thing, to have your party. We did have a libertarian primary a couple years back in one of the races because the libertarians had hit the threshold. But yeah, there's a lot of different parties out there.
Great. So, okay, tell us again when the primary is and tell us how we can vote. You said we have to register. Tell us that date again. It's worth repeating all the dates so we get them.
Absolutely. The last day to register or change your party affiliation for the upcoming primary election is July 20th. So you have to have it done. And you can do that online too. That's the beauty of it. You can go to, go to my website. It hooks into the state online voter registration system. You can either register to vote the first time, or you can change your party affiliation, update your address, anything you need to do, you can do it online. So encourage people to do that. The election is actually August 18th, and early voting will begin August 3rd. So we're right around the corner from that too. We'll have 2 full weeks of early voting from 10 to 6, 24 early vote sites throughout the county. And then, of course, election day, the last day to vote, is August 18th. And we've got about 239 polling sites throughout the county on election day. On election day, you must vote in the precinct that you reside in. And the simple reason for that is your ballot's going to be waiting for you there. Early voting will produce your specific ballot on demand. We'll print your ballot for you right there, no matter what early vote sites you go to. But election day, your ballot's waiting for you at the polling site in your precinct.
So how many people have gotten the mail vote ballots already?
Yeah, we've sent out over 300,000 vote by mail ballots, and they're actually starting to come back in. We've gotten several thousand back already. So people, it's not too late to request a vote by mail ballot either. You can do that up to August 8th. And I would encourage people, though, if you're going to do it now. I mean, it's a great insurance policy for everything we're going through right now. So, you know, you can go online to the website. You can request a vote by mail ballot. You must be a registered voter, obviously, to get that. We don't just send them out.
And one of the common questions is, let's say somebody gets the vote by mail ballot, but they just forget to fill it out, or they change their mind and they want to come in and vote in person, either early or on the election day. Tell them what to do then, please.
Yeah, it's not a problem at all. We ask you to bring the ballot. You don't have to. If you don't have it, you know, the dog ate it, whatever happened. As soon as you check in at early vote or election day, it's going to cancel that ballot immediately. So, you know, even if you tried to mail it, it's not going to work. It'll be canceled immediately. The same way when you vote by mail, as soon as we get that ballot back in our office, that will cancel any ability to vote in person. But you don't have to bring that ballot back in with you. We'll take your word for it.
And there is some perception that the early votes or the vote by mail doesn't count as much as a day of vote. Can you talk about that? And also, what percentage of people are voting before election day nowadays?
Yeah. So the first one, vote by mail ballots are actually the first results reported on election night. We have vote by mail and early vote come out shortly after 7 o'clock. Then the precincts start coming in. So yes, every single vote by mail ballot that's accepted is going to be counted. Now I say it's accepted because this is something, there's a little voter responsibility here too. You have to sign the oath on the outside of that envelope saying that, you know, this is who you are. You've requested that ballot. We've sent you the ballot. Now you've got to sign it. When that goes back to my office, we're going to compare that signature against signatures we have on file in the voter registration system. If for some reason it doesn't match or you forget to sign it, we're going to immediately start communicating with you because there's a remedy for that. And what people will notice, especially first-time vote by mail people, on the back of that envelope, we're asking for some additional information. It's optional. We'd like your email address. We'd like a phone number to get a hold of you because we want to help you remedy that situation so your vote does in fact count. And the number of ballots that aren't counted is because voters don't follow up and do what they need to do to get their signature remedied. So that's
what percentage does your team usually reject of the signatures that don't match? Do you know?
Yeah, so my team doesn't reject any, actually. The canvassing board is the only body that can reject a signature. And that's made up of the county judge, actually 2 county judges and myself if I'm not on the ballot. And it's less than like 1/3 of 1% is what's rejected. And as I said, generally it's because, you know, we've sent the information to the voter and the voter maybe signed the oath, but didn't give us a copy of a piece of identification. You know, if you do the 2 things, sign the oath and furnish us with a copy of one of the valid identifications, your signature is going to be counted.
And one of the things that people wonder is, there's always jokes about in Florida, you can vote more than once, or you should vote early and often in Florida. Can you tell folks what securities there are in place to make sure that somebody doesn't vote more than once? And also, there are all these jokes about dead people voting. Can you just address how your team deals with that?
Yeah, so I've never seen any dead people come into my office to vote, I'll tell you that. And you got to remember, in Florida, you have to show identification. You have to provide one of the valid identifications outlined in the statute. Generally, people are showing their driver's license, but there's a lot of other IDs that you can show. Same way with vote by mail. As I mentioned, you've got to sign that envelope, and we compare that signature that's on file. But the Florida, the state, we have a statewide Florida voter registration system, and it feeds from every county. So if somebody comes to my county and they vote, it immediately is going up to the Florida voter registration system, and it shows that they've already voted. If somebody tries to go to another county and vote, it's going to show that they've already voted. So you're not going to have people that are going to be able to double vote in any counties. Everything is pretty much electronic now. We take a lot of advantage of technology. You know, it used to be when you were talking about vote by mail, I didn't bring my vote by mail ballot with me when we had the old paper registers, and they'd have to stop and actually call the office and cancel that vote by mail ballot so that it wouldn't be processed if for some reason it showed up. Excuse me. Now with the electronic poll books, it's instantaneous. No delay at all. As soon as somebody comes in, that vote by mail ballot's canceled immediately. In the same way, if they voted by mail, it's going to show. If they try and go in and vote, it's going to show that they've already voted. We may offer them an opportunity to vote a provisional ballot if they insist they didn't, but again, that's going to go to the canvassing board.
So back when the infamous hanging Chads incident happened, there was a push for electronic machines, and I think Pamela Oria was in your position then, and did a great job bringing on new equipment and explaining to everybody how the new systems would work. Well, one of the questions that I often get is, why can't we vote online? Why can't we vote electronically? Well, I remember after that there was this big movement that we needed paper backup, e-verify, all that. So can you please tell us why we don't have electronic voting? That you may count it electronically, but why does there have to be a piece of paper?
Yeah, and that's, the paper is the key to it, I got to tell you, because that way, if we ever have to recreate an election for any reason whatsoever, we've got the actual ballots that were filled out. So, I mean, that is just the perfect backup that you can have now. Let's go back to the touchscreen machines, the ones you were referring to that preceded the optical scan that we have now. Those were computers. They were little computers, and you touched the screen and it recorded everything. And I'm sure, over the years, you've gone to turn on your computer and the screen was blue and nothing happened and you couldn't figure out what was going on because you had some kind of a system crash. Well, if that happened, you lost those votes. You couldn't recreate them. There was no thumb drive or anything else they were on. They were being stored on data in those machines. So they were not real good, I don't think. I've read a lot of stuff on them too. About depending on if somebody made a mistake programming them, you vote for one person, it gives it to another person. So I'm all over what we use now with the paper ballots because we can always go back and look at that. One of the things I do at our office, Bill, after every election, there's an audit that takes place. There's two ways you can do it. And this is a great point too, I should have brought up earlier, but there's two ways you can do that. The canvassing board can select a race and precincts, and my people go find all the ballots from those precincts in that race, and we hand count them to ensure that the machine counted them correctly. The other way you can do it is use an electronic audit system, and that's what I do. And I'm auditing 100% of the ballots that are cast in our tabulation system, and I'm using a certified system from the state to verify that my tabulation system counted those ballots correctly.
Let me just do a plug, Cafe on Tampa plug real fast. If you're watching this live or later, please hit the share button. We do this as a free service for the community so that we can spread information widely. Please share this important information. We want to make sure people vote, and Craig is telling us how to do that. The other thing is that Cafe on Tampa style, you're welcome to ask questions. You can, if you're watching on your phone, you can post underneath the live feed. If you're watching on your computer, to the right, but post that and we'll try to get the questions. Craig, I want to ask another question. One of the things that Florida is famous for, and I don't know whether it's ever been true or not, but people think, oh, well, at some precincts, there are just boxes of ballots laying around and they find them 6 months later. How do you make sure that something like that doesn't happen? How do you make sure that all the boxes are counted?
Yeah, so there's a tremendous amount of auditing and balancing that goes into this. Let's just start with election day. We know how many voters signed in. We know how many votes were cast. We could look at that immediately. So, there's a little balancing that goes on right there, a little auditing. Early votes the same way. We know how many people have signed in early vote. We know how many people have voted. You know, we have that information. Vote by mail. You can't get a vote by mail unless you're a registered voter. And again, these numbers, and you know, one of the things that, especially with vote by mail, every day that vote by mail information goes to the parties and to candidates so that they know who to quit mailing to, number one. So, you know, we've got all this information out of who's doing all this voting. And it's really simple to look at too, because every month we produce voter rolls, and it's got the number of voters, it's got whether they voted in the election or not, and what the method that they voted. And, you know, we post everything online too. So there's a tremendous amount of transparency. I would encourage people, go to my website, votehillsborough.org. You would be stunned at the amount of data that you can find on there and see exactly what I'm talking about. Because we've got all the election results. They're down to precinct level. You can go back and look at them historically. It's a lot of information on there.
So one of the things that came out of 2016 and maybe other times is Russian hackers or North Korean hackers or Chinese hackers. There's a paper backup, but still the transmission and some tabulating is done electronically. How do you how do you ward off hacks? And does that happen often? Can you tell that on election days that people are trying to hack in, and can you tell where they're hacking from?
Yeah, so, you know, let's put it out there right now that every county in Florida by law, your election management system is a standalone system, not connected to the internet and not connected to my system whatsoever. It's a total standalone air gap system. The voter registration system is not connected to that. The voter registration system is another system that interfaces with the state. So, you know, what I would offer to you in 2016, that our elections didn't get hacked, our confidence got hacked, because that's exactly what they were trying to do, was undermine confidence in our elections. And in some ways they were successful in doing that. We know now, you know, all of the social media manipulation that was going on out there. But, you know, our system, I'm not going to go out on a limb and say we'll never be hacked, because that would just invite trouble, I know. But I'm confident in our system because we do have an air gap system. Nothing's ever touching the internet. So, you know, I feel that, along with, you know, every supervisor in the state of Florida has what's called an Albert sensor. And that sensor sits on my servers where the voter registration information is. It's monitored 24/7. If my servers wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and try and ping Russia or North Korea, they're going to immediately see that. Take immediate action to remediate it so that things don't happen. And then, of course, we take a deeper dive at that point.
So we have our first question. And for anybody who just logged in, you can post your question underneath or to the right of the feed here. But our first question is from PJ Somerville, who is actually the president of CAFIC on Tampa and a poll worker volunteer. But she asked the question, where and when can voters drop off their vote by mail ballots if they don't want to mail it?
Yeah, great question. Thanks, PJ. And PJ has been a poll worker with us, and she's a wonderful one too. You can drop your ballot off at any early vote site during early voting. We're going to have pop-up tents out there. You can drive right up. It's going to almost be a curbside drop-off, if you will. You can also drop them at any of our 4 offices. Now, the county center office is not open yet. They're still closed, but they're supposed to be opening here in the next few days or week.
So I'll ask you a crazy question. So if somebody comes in and they're not registered to vote, but they want one of those I voted stickers, do you all give it to them, or do you say no?
I would leave that up to discretion of the poll worker. The clerk in charge of that.
More of a community honesty thing. Well, what else have we not talked about? Tell us first, what's the percentage of the population, the eligible population that is registered, and in what percentage of the eligible population votes in Hillsborough County?
So that's a great question. It's a good question and kind of an unknown. You know, we look at that. You know, we work with the Planning Commission. How many people do we have that are over 18 years old? And how does that compute to how many people we have registered to vote? You got to take some stuff into consideration there too. Are they in fact a U.S. citizen? You know, are they over here on a work visa? So obviously they're not eligible to register to vote. And then of course we know that we've got the felon issue going on. they may not be eligible to register to vote. But one thing that we're going to know here real soon, Florida is like the 29th state to join what's called the ERIC project. And the ERIC project is a consortium where the states send their driver's license information and their voter information into this computer center, and they mix and match everything, and they end up, finding people that have moved out of county that we didn't know about, people that have moved out of state we didn't know about, and they also find deceased people that we weren't aware of. The state's hooked into the health department, but they might have died out of state. But the other side of that too is that one of the agreements you have to have is that they're going to furnish us with a list, to the state actually, a list of eligible but may not be registered people that they also have surfaced. And then this first poll that they're getting ready to do now, they're estimating that there'll be about 4 million people in that category statewide. And the state has responsibility to communicate with them via postcard or some other method and let them know what the opportunities are to be able to register to vote. And I think that that's going to be going out in September, is my understanding from the state, that they'll be sending those out. So that's a great one there. And Bill, you asked me earlier, and I didn't get to it, but you asked about how many people are voting by mail, how many people are voting before election day, and it's going to be really interesting. Traditionally, in Hillsborough County and in the state, a third of our voters vote by mail, a third early vote, and a third vote election day. Now, the presidential preference primary that we just had on March 17th, that's when the COVID started to really ramp up. And our vote by mail ended up going over 50% of our voters. And election day, I can tell you, was less than 1/2 the amount of people that voted in the exact same election in 2016. So I think that, obviously we're going to see a lot more people voting by mail. We've sent out more vote by mail ballots than we've ever sent out before. And to those people that are going to be first time vote by mail, if you go to a polling site and you have a question, you got a poll worker there to answer your question for you. Well, if you got a vote by mail ballot, we're going to be your poll workers. If you got a question, pick up the phone and call our office, communicate with us at voter@hcsoe.org. Tell us what the problem is. If you made a mistake on your ballot, we're going to issue you a new one, just as if you were in a polling site. So let us be your poll workers. Let us help you out. We want to make sure your vote counts.
And one of the things that people don't realize is if the votes are lower for primary than November, everybody knows to go vote in November. But if the votes are fewer, people wonder, does my vote count? Well, your vote counts more if there are fewer people voting, right? So
exactly.
Also, you made me think, so again, in terms of making sure that the right people vote, sometimes we get the question about snowbirds and people that have two residences. So if somebody has a house in Boston and also a house in Hillsborough County, how do you make sure that they're not voting in both places?
Yeah, so there is no national registry, and that is a little bit of a challenge. I have seen a couple of cases where people did vote in two locations. I know Pasco County just convicted a gentleman not too long ago. And where they vote second is where the violation occurs. I can tell you, I've had people tell me, that they know so-and-so that's living in New York and they're getting a vote by mail ballot from me and they're voting in New York. And I'll call up to New York, investigate it, and it's not true. It's not happening. So I'm not going to say it doesn't happen. I think it may happen on a very, very small scale.
But you said it's against the law, and well, what's the punishment? Do they go in jail for that, or?
It's a third-degree felony.
Well, okay, let me ask a question from the floor. Greg Wilson, who's a regular at Catholic on Tampa and a political consultant, retired political consultant, says his 98-year-old father's signature just isn't what it used to be. What risk does he face that his current signature won't be deemed valid and his vote not counted?
None. Have him do an update to a voter registration form with his current signature. I tell people too, if your signature is an X, it's an X. As long as I've got that X on file in my office as one of your signatures, you're going to be fine. So I would encourage. Now, if you go online, it'll pull your driver's license signature in. So if you ever forget how to sign your name, look at your driver's license. But if you do have somebody that's aging and their signature's changing drastically and they just don't have the physical mobility, then update it to something that they can do, their initials, you know, with a circle around it or something. It's their mark is what it is. It doesn't have to be the signature that we had 40 years ago from this voter. And I think you misstated that. He's not a retired political consultant. He's a recovering political consultant.
And I don't think he's retired either. I think he's still dabbling, but he can disagree with us online here. So what else? We're in the last 5 minutes. What else should I have asked? What else would you like the public to know?
You know, just I think the greatest thing right now is the opportunity to vote by mail. You know, we know what's going on out here with this virus. I know, you know, I had people calling me on March 17th at 4 p.m. saying, you know, I thought I was going to be able to vote by mail, and now I'm scared to death to come out. You know, what can I do? Don't wait till the last minute and get caught up in that. And the same thing, if you want to go an in-person vote, it's going to be a little slower. We're going to be social distancing. We're going to be cleaning. You're going to see poll workers behind plexiglass barriers, masked up. And we're going to try and keep you safe too. That's the whole thing, is we want everybody to be safe. But if you're going to go to early vote, don't wait till the last weekend. Go the first couple of days. You know, get it out of the way when there's no crowds, when there's not that many people out voting. That's the biggest thing. And you know what? One thing you can do too and vote by mail, there's a couple things. We just started this year with a new vendor called Ballot Scout. You can sign up for this on my website. You can put a phone number in. They'll actually text you when your ballot's on the way. They'll text you and let you know the ballot's gotten back to my office. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can just go online at my office and actually any supervisor elections office, and you can track your ballot back to the office. It'll show when it's arrived there. So, you know, just some good information. Take some voter responsibility. You know, don't wait. And the people that have these vote by mail ballots, get them in. Don't hold on to them. You know, the post office is telling us it's taken a minimum of 5 days to get first class mail back and forth now. And that's 5 of their business days, not 5 calendar days. So I would just urge people, you know, get them in the mail. If you don't want to mail them right now, you can bring them to my 4 offices. After August 3rd, you can take them to any of the 24 early vote sites and drop them off in person.
Yeah, and I should say this is a little plug for voting. You know, we around Memorial Day, Veterans Day, other holidays, July 4th, we talk about the people that fought and died for our country and for the rights and freedoms we have. There's no greater right than the right to vote. And, you know, I've been to 97 countries around the world now, and there are a lot of people in a lot of countries that would love to have the kinds of multi-party system we have and the debates that we have. And so please, everybody, make sure you vote, make sure you're registered, make sure you vote. It's super, super important. And, you know, there are people in other countries that look at us and say, you have the right and freedom. Why don't you use it? Please, everybody use it.
And Bill, I can tell you, these primaries are really sad. We talked about it at the beginning about the importance of them. The largest turnout we've ever had for any primary was in 2018, and it was a 26% turnout. It needs to be more than that. You know, we need to get people engaged out there. There's some big local elections that are going to impact you locally, so take advantage.
Hey, well, thank you very much. Any final websites? PJ, remind us that we should talk about the telephone number to call. Anything else that you'd like to give us so that folks have information?
Sure. Our main office number is 813-744-5900. It's 813-744-5900. And you can go to votehillsborough.org. And I would encourage you, go to votehillsborough.org. You're going to find a tremendous amount of information. You can actually, you know, you can pull up your sample ballot online, your specific sample ballot, and look at it. So you can see, hey, here's who I'm going to get to vote for. Request that vote by mail ballot while you're there too.
Yeah, thank you so much, Craig. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And I want to give a special thanks to the Hardy County Chamber of Commerce. I happen to be sitting here in their beautiful building, which is an old, restored train depot. And so if you hear any echoes or you see the kind of natural lighting coming from the window, there's a false background I have here. Or if you hear the trucks driving by, it's because I'm in beautiful Hardy County, with everything that's going on here, using their internet and their service. So thank you very much. Thanks to Dell and PJ and the other board members for all their support. Thanks everybody for staying tuned. We hope to get back to face-to-face meetings soon, but it's probably not going to be anytime soon. Thanks so much, Craig. We look forward to seeing you again soon to give us updates on what's going on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Take care.